Hello everyone. So the topic will be regarding the DevOps. We'll understand what is DevOps, why this is used, and that this will be the fully focused related to the tool called Jenkins. So we have to understand first about the what is the DevOps and why this made. So what is the DevOps process? So as we understood, like the developers or the system administrators, the system engineers or IT persons who are working for a company to help them out through the process. The process will be the website deployment, the coding practices, and then release processes. So DevOps is a kind of the automation process which is helping you to easy these things. Okay, so by using the DevOps tools, this will be benefit to you to automate the every process of the every stages. What will be the stages? So that we are going to understand in this session. Okay, so we will be fully focused on the one of the tool which will be the Jenkins, which is helping you for the DevOps automation process. So my name is Manthan Gadia, and I am having the experience about the DevOps engineering processes. I'm following since the last 8 years and revolutionizing the continuous integrations and delivery. So let's get started and let's jump in to the DevOps process. We understood what is the DevOps. DevOps is a combinations of the life cycle. Okay, that is a life cycle process which is followed in the companies. So suppose if you are working in a company, the companies are having their developers who are developing a code, and that after that they are making the build and deploying to the servers. But that was a traditional process. On that, they have to manually do these things. But with the help of the DevOps tools, you can just simply automate these things without any interventions. So which will help you throughout the process to make it easy and reliable. So there are certain tools which will be used in a DevOps. So this is the DevOps tool like Git, GitHub, Jenkins, Chef, Terraform, Docker, Kubernetes, Prometheus, Grafana, and more. So there are lots of tools which is available in a DevOps lifecycle process, which we can use to automate the processes. First one is a Git. Git is used for a source code. Okay. Then GitHub is also the source code project, which will be hosted in a cloud by the GitHub Inc. That is a freely available and the premium purchases are also available. Then Jenkins. Jenkins is a kind of CI/CD tools which we are going to see in this webinar. Then Chef. Chef is also a deployment process tool. Terraform. Terraform is an infrastructure as a code tool. Docker. Docker is a containerizing tool which you can run the more and more servers if you want in a particular each and every server. So that will be the virtualization technology. Kubernetes is the advanced level of a Docker where you can orchestrate your containers with some of the scripts. Then Prometheus. Prometheus is a monitoring tool which will be used to gather the logs and which will help you throughout. And you can see the analysis using the Grafana. So Grafana will be the visualizing tool and Prometheus will be the collector, which will be the agent. And there are so many tools available with the DevOps process, but we will start with the Jenkins because Jenkins is the key thing in any IT industries. Okay, Jenkins is very useful. Okay, so we'll understand what is before the Jenkins and what is Jenkins. We will going to see in the next slides. So in this slide, it is showing like undertaking the pre-Jenkins era. So what was the process before Jenkins was came? So before the Jenkins, there was a manual process. On a manual process, you just have to commit the changes. Developer have to manually do the code, okay, and then they have to transfer the zip file to the deployment team. The deployment team will create a build of it and then deploy to the web server. But that was a lengthy process which was followed in a earlier era. So at that time, the people has recognized like this DevOps process is required to automate this process for the deployment and the continuous building. That is why Jenkins has been came. Also, there will be the isolated development. Isolated development means if there is one application running and the second application is required, you have to deploy it in a separate environment or a separate server, which is a very time consuming and also the very costly because you have to purchase another server. On that you have to host it and you have to deploy it. Then long release cycles. So suppose if the changes has been done by the developer, they also have to wait for the release. After release, if any bugs will be found or any issue will be found, they are going to like edit that process. Again, they will share the code and then again will be released. If this process is a very lengthy, that time consuming, it will create a issue for a client as well. So that website will be not maintained promptly and it will be delayed, which will impact the customers review also. So to avoid this kind of things, DevOps process has been introduced. The manual deployment. We have seen the manual process, but what is manual deployment? So the developer is providing the code. After that, the operation team, the server team will build that code and will generate that artifact which have to be deployed in a server. So they will upload that deployment, okay, and then the website will be live again with the mentioned changes. So that process was a manual. Manually, you have to download the zip file, you have to upload that code on a server, and then process will be done. So that is also the time consuming, and that is not the continuous process. Lack of CI practices. So CI practices means continuous integration. What is continuous integrations? If you having that multiple developers available in your organizations, they are doing the changes in every hours. So any every hour basis, you have to do the deployment as well. If there is a big company, the developers are more, so your changes will be required to be deployed after some time to test it out. So because of the lack of the CI practices, this release will be delayed and the productivity will be decreased. So the company's reputations and that kind of the behavior regarding that deployment process will be not fulfill the client's requirement and they have to suffer during these things. And this was taking the time as well as for the deployment. So this was the pre-Jenkins era where this process was followed by manually deploying the things. Now we are going to see what is the Jenkins. We understood like DevOps, in a DevOps, Jenkins is a one kind of a automation CI/CD tool. But what is the meaning of Jenkins? Okay. So Jenkins is an open source automation software. What is the meaning of open source? You not have to pay anything to use this tool. You can freely download this tool from the internet for your Linux, Mac and Windows environment and you can start using it by the configuration. So Jenkins is an open source automation server. This is the automation server which is helping you to perform the task by your inputs. It helps automate the non-human part. of software development. So it also helps automate the non-human parts. What is the non-human parts? Like the system processes. So suppose in a release, like developer is committing their changes and the person is required to manually pull that changes, do the build and put that zip file to the server. But it is a time consuming, and as well as if that person is not available, so that will create an issue for that. The release will be not done. The deployment will be paused. But Jenkins is replacing them and doing these things automatically without the human interaction. So you just have to define the process once, and then later on that process will be automate, and you not have to worry about every time for the deployment. So which is helping you to automate the non-human parts of the software development with continuous integrations. What is continuous integrations? If the changes are coming by time to time, you can deploy it as well. So continuous integration means developers are pushing their changes at every minutes or every hours, that can be deployed with the continuous process and without delay. So this will help you to faster your development process as well as, and it will be ready as soon as possible. The client can be demo. So this will help you to resolve the issues, perform it very scalably, and stability will be there for the deployment process, which is helping you throughout the whole DevOps lifecycle. So lifecycle process will be automated through the Jenkins. So with the continuous integrations and facilitating technical aspects of continuous delivery. Facilitating technical aspects like the configurations which you want to assign or which you want to define, that can be done with the flawless. So one time you have to just mention these things and it will be done repeatedly. Whenever these things are done, the continuous changes are coming, that will be deployed as per your process. You just have to monitor that things. That's it. Now the flow which we are talking about, this is the flow which is called as a continuous integrations overview. So here let's understand what is this. Here you can see source code updates which is done by the developers. So developers are doing the coding. After they do the coding, they complete that coding, they will push the changes to the repository. What is repository? Repository is a location where your code will be stored in a centralized server. So that centralized server will be act as a repository. That is a collection of your code. Okay. So source codes are pushed by developers to the repository. That will be through the Git or a GitHub, any of the source code management tool. After the changes has been received in a repository, the process will be started here. And this is a Jenkins process, which is mentioned as a continuous integration server. Here the Jenkins process start. So Jenkins is another server which is pulling this repository changes, pulling that codes, and then it will be act as the process which we have defined. So the first process is it mentioned retrieve revisions and SCM artifacts. So it will check the repository. If any changes came, it will pull the changes. So there is a project workspace where the process is defined, and there is a project configuration which we have done. So with this project configurations, we have predefined that things which have to be done, like what will be the build process, what will be the testing process, what will be packaging that, and then deploying it to the particular server so our website can be deployed. So this Jenkins process will help you through the continuous integrations process and then deploy it. So here the first phase is project configurations. On this project configurations, you will define the parameters, what needs to be done, and that will be deployed. So the build process will be started. After that, the automation test will be done. That will be also through the Jenkins itself. It will process, like it will check like there is no syntax error on the development packages, and it will be then packaged. The artifact will be packaged. The deployment code will be packaged into the zip file or any desirable that folder, and that will be published or deployed to the target. Target will be any of the servers like our internal office server where our website is running, or it will be the cloud server, maybe AWS, Azure, GCP, any of the. So you can deploy your changes to the cloud as well as the local system. So this Jenkins process is also helpful and used by the system administrators, Linux administrator, Windows administrator. Why? Because this process is followed in every IT company. Jenkins is a kind of tool which is used by everyone because this is the fastest and more, we can say, the reliable tool on that companies are using for automate their processes, because this is a very much useful to automate the process and simplify it without any manual intervention. That's why Jenkins is a kind of important tool in the whole DevOps process. Without this Jenkins tool, DevOps process is incomplete. So here the deployment has been done, and it can be either on a local server, either on a your cloud servers like AWS servers, and you can start your website changes there. So that code will be deployed and your website will be updated. Also, there are some notification settings are also there. So you are not aware about the deployment process, but if any issues came, any error came, so you will be notified through the notifications either on a email, either on a Slack, or any of the mediums like Teams. You can do the integration of it, that things. So that integrations will also help you to alerting you if something is happening wrong on the deployment process. If there is some errors, if there is some code level issues, that you will be notified like this process is stuck. So you will have to fix it, and then again process will be continued. So this is the flow of the CI/CD process, which is followed by the Jenkins. And this is also the DevOps process where the developers are pushing their code, then deployed, build, test, packaged, and can be deployed through the desired server. Here you will access the Jenkins through the web console from the web browser. You will get a one graphical interface when you install the Jenkins. From there, you can just operate this web server, which is helping you. What is the purpose of Jenkins? So Jenkins enables developers to build, test, and deploy their software in a reliable and automated manners. So Jenkins enabling you, the developers and the coders, to build their application, test it well, and deploy it to the environment which you want, like the servers, with the automated manner. So you not have to do anything. Developer will, you just define the process, and that will be the automated things. Developer will push the changes, that will be tested, builded, and test and deployed on their mentioned environment. So you just have to monitor these things only. After you do the that configurations, you just have to monitor it. It helps in integrating the changes more easily. So this process is helping you throughout that. We can say that integrating the changes more easily. So you not have to do anything. That is automatically doing. You just have to observe the things. That's why Jenkins is very powerful for the CI/CD process, because you just define once and that will be runs on a decades. You not have to worry about it. thereby increasing the efficiency of the development cycle. So this is also increasing the efficiency. So the code integrity and the efficiency, it will be tested throughout this development cycle. So it will be working fine for the developers as well as the operation persons, because operations person not have to headache for the deploy it manually. So they are free, so they can do any task, do any other task. Developers are also not have the headache because they are doing their work and just committing their changes, and that automation process will do the things for them. So developers is focusing in their work, and operation team is focusing in their another stuff. This Jenkins will take the load of this both of the developers and operation teams. Why we should have to use the Jenkins? Okay, the benefits. It is a open source and community driven. So this Jenkins tool is a free. You can download it freely and you can use it without any license. You not have to purchase any license, you not have to pay any fees, because this is a open source and a community driven. So there are lots of people worldwide who are supporting the Jenkins, and they are working on the development of the Jenkins tool for the betterment. So they are also pushing and doing their contributions to helping to define the process more smoothly. So if any updates are coming to the Jenkins, that is because of the community. So community developers are helping to build the Jenkins tool as well as and provide the updates on a regular basis. Extensive plugin ecosystem. So the plugin system helping you throughout that process which you want to define. What is the meaning of plugin? Plugin means a feature. Suppose you want to deploy a Java applications or a .NET Core applications, you have to use that certain tools, the certain plugins, which will resolve the dependencies for your code. So that dependency or libraries which will be found through the plugins. The plugin will help you throughout that process, and it will help you throughout the deployment process as well as the build process. Easy integrations with various tools and technologies. So as I told you, you can get the notifications through the Slack channel, through the Teams, through the emails. So it is easily integrated with any another tools. So the integration part is the most beneficial for the Jenkins, because if that any error came during the Jenkins process, who will notify you? So this is, integrations tools are helping you to notify if any issues came to your build process, any deployment process, or any pipelines. So we have to understood also like what is the pipeline that we are going to see. Scale and flexible to fit any CI/CD pipeline. So there are many more CI/CD pipeline tools available, but the Jenkins is open source. Rest of the sum of like Bamboo, Audacity, like that are the paid version. But Jenkins is a open source and it is a very far and better than that another tools. That's why we should have to focus, or the companies, most companies are focusing on a Jenkins also. So scalable and flexible to fit. So you can scale your workloads here for the build process. If you're having the multiple build process, you can scale it as per your requirements, and you can fit to any CI/CD pipeline. So you can create the many CI/CD pipelines. This process will called as a pipeline because you are just doing the integrations and you are delivering things. So the name is given this process as a pipeline. Pipeline is just kind of a configurations which you made for a one project. So that is called as a particular CI/CD pipeline for that particular project. You can create a multiple CI/CD pipelines for a multiple projects as per your requirements. So there is no limitations on that. So now who can use this Jenkins? Okay, there are the target audience who are using this Jenkins. First is developers. Developers are using to automate that code integrations and testing, because Jenkins is automatically fetching your changes. See, if developer commit their changes, what is the commit? Developer is pushing their changes. So that is called as a commit. They are saving their code. So once the developers are saving their code in their particular repository, this automation tool will pull that changes and build it and do the testing. So developers not have to worry to do these things manually. They just have to focus on their development work. Second is DevOps engineers, because the DevOps engineers having the responsibility to create these Jenkins, to configure these things as per the requirements, configure the particular projects, and then they have to streamline the CI/CD pipeline process. So DevOps engineers are the responsible person for this Jenkins management. They are creating this Jenkins server. If already this exists, they will do the adding of the project and required dependencies they will install, and then they can start this deployment process and streamline this CI/CD pipelines. So DevOps engineers are using this tool. Then QA teams. What is the QA team? QA means quality analysis. So that there is a quality analysis. Okay, the team will check the deployment. Once the deployment will be done, the website will be deployed. They will test it out in a live environment. So suppose I have deployed a website. So the QA team will test it out, like all the functions are working fine or not. If there is any issue, they will report to the developers directly, and developer will do the changes, and that will be deployed again with the Jenkins. So this is a kind of the circle which is followed. So QA team helping you for a testing purpose. The automation testing is a different thing which we are doing in a Jenkins. That will check that code errors and all things, but QA teams will check the functionality. QA team will testing out the website functionality. They will share their suggestions, the bugs to the developers. Developers will fix it again and then redeploy it. So they will deploy the things again with the Jenkins. And this process continues till the website is running proper. If QA team is not find any issue, they will pass these changes and that will be available for our customers. Then system administrators. System administrators are also using Jenkins for the local builds. Suppose there is a development team sitting on a IT company. So that particular IT company in that office premises, they can use this Jenkins server for deploy that changes locally on the local server. So they will use this approach as well as for their local environments. They can set up a Jenkins server in a local. They can configure it to fetch out that changes which has been done by the developers. And then that will be deployed to the local servers. So you can either deploy on a local server as well as on a cloud. So system administrators are also using this Jenkins tool to automate their processes. So there are a certain build tools. Okay, what is the build tools? The build means the code which has been done by the developers. So that has to be compiled. After the compilations, you just have to build it. During the build, you will get a one kind of a source, that destination code which you have to deploy. So suppose you having that code will be human readable. But the deployment code cannot be human readable because that is a system generated code which will be used for a server deployment. So build tool will be using to build the particular application's code. That application will be the Java based, that will be the .NET based or the shell script. So you can define the process in a Jenkins through the build tools like Java. In a Java, there is a Maven, Ant, and Gradle. In a .NET, there is a MS build and PowerShell you can use for a build process. For a shell script, you can define a shell script in a Python language, Ruby, and Groovy. So that Groovy language is a Jenkins language, okay, that you can use for a CI/CD process. On that, you can just do the coding of that Groovy, but we are going to follow that GUI based explanations, how you can define the process in your particular that console and from your console UI itself. So if you're not aware about any scripting, you not have to worry. You can just define it from the console from your browser itself. Jenkins architecture. So in the Jenkins, there are key components like master nodes, that will be the central unit, then agent nodes, that will be the execute build jobs, then pipelines, which will be the sequence of the automated task, and there will be the plugin, which will enhance your functionality. So the master node will be your base machine where you will install the Jenkins. The agent node will be who is executing the build jobs. So in a master, you will get a one agent which will help you for a build process and deployment. So master will be the central unit. On that, you are going to deploy the changes to the destination server, and that will be executed by the agent itself. So the agent will do the building process, then deployment process. Master will do the commands to them. So master will send a command to the agent like perform this build, and that will be done. Pipeline is a process which we are defining like the sequence of the automated task. That is a process which we are defined for a particular task, which is called as a pipeline. Plugins means you are enhancing your functionality by adding the required plugins. Suppose there is an email integration tool, like whenever pipeline fails, I want to receive the alerts. So you can install that email alerts plugin, and then you can set up your email ID and you will get the notifications when any pipeline issue occurs. So plugins is a kind of the feature. You can add it, you can install it, and then you can use it. So let's understand what is the Jenkins pipeline. Okay, but before that, we have to understand what is a pipeline. The Jenkins pipeline is a suitable of plugins. Okay, that shoots of plugins. So that is a bunch of plugins that supports implementing and integrating continuous delivery process. So using the pipeline, you are just processing the build and you are just deploying it to the servers. So you are just making the process. You are making that circle, like developers are that pushing their code. Process will be built. Okay, and the artifact, the deployment zip file or any that supported the folders, you will receive and you will just deploy it to the servers, and that website will be live. So this process we are defining is called as a pipeline. We are processing a one pipeline structure because this is kind of a circle which we are following. So this pipeline process will be followed. There are certain types of the pipeline like declarative pipeline, more structure and simple syntax. So declarative means you are declaring that these things should be done by the console itself. So from that GUI version, you are just deploying these things, which is helping you throughout that process. Scripted pipelines, which is full control over the pipeline. Using the scripted pipeline, you can just define the script as a DevOps engineer. If you want to create a script, you not have to follow that graphical interface for this each and every process. You just want to code it. So you can also create a script as well as, and you can just define the process using that script. That script will be any Python, Ruby, or a Groovy, any. Setting up the Jenkins. The setting up the Jenkins is very easy. You just have to go to the official website of the Jenkins, and then you can just install it. The supported platforms are Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. So you can install on any of the operating system. Jenkins is available for all. You can either install on a Windows servers or a Linux servers, any of the Windows machine, Linux machine, or a Mac OS machine. You can just do the installation. You can do the download, the installation, and do the initial configurations. So what comes in a initial configurations? That is the setting of the plugins, then configuring the system settings. So you will just apply the plugins which is required for your build process and the deployment process. Then you are configuring the system settings which will be required for a build process. Plugins will be installed, then you are configuring the things, and then adding the user account. So if you want to provide the access of this Jenkins console to any developers, you can also provide. If you want to provide this access to the any of the like the CEO, if you want to provide the access to the CEO, like CEO wants to see that deployment process, how it is following. So you can just create that user account and you can provide the access to them. So this is a very helpful tool for a DevOps lifecycle as well as the system administrators as well as for the developers. So this is solving the problems of the three of the kind of the type of the profiles like system admins, then DevOps engineers and the developers. So you can create a user accounts as per the requirement. Jenkins use cases. Why Jenkins are uses? Because we have already seen. First one is continuous integrations. So let's suppose your development team is there. Like let's take an example of a Instagram. Instagram is doing changes rapidly. You are getting the updates when you just see your mobile applications. On that, you will receive each and every day lots of application updates are coming out. Why? Because the development team is continuously developing something, fixing something, which is helping to do the release faster. So that changes are coming faster. Earlier days, this process was taking a time because the CI/CD tools are not available. Developers has to struggle there. They have to manually do these changes and then they have to deploy it. But with the help of continuous integrations and continuously deployment, this process is far faster. Okay, this process became faster and the release are happening day by day basis now. Earlier this was happening in a weekly basis, but now this is happening in a day by day basis. So daily basis there are some changes which are uh, like they are pushing that to the public and that clients will be downloading it and then installing the changes. So that is an example of the Instagram. Okay, they are doing the code and you will see the every time when you go to the Play Store on your Apple Store where you can find out there is a new update available every time because they are continuously working on it through this kind of the CI/CD process. So this CI/CD process automate the code integrations and testing. So developers now not have to worry on that. They are saving their time for by without deploying these things because this is doing automatic. So they just have to focus on their development. So if they are focusing more on a development, their productivity will be increased. If productivity will be increased, that will be beneficial for the companies as well as. That's why companies are requesting to install the Jenkins tools. The earlier teams was not using these things, but nowadays Jenkins are using everywhere because this is helping the developers and also improving their productivity. So continuous integrations will helping to automate that code integrations and testing. So testing will be also done by this Jenkins tool. So if you have run that test cases, it will check that code errors is there. If code error is there, it will notify to the developers. Like this is the code error which you have to resolve. They again do the that resolutions and then again push the changes. Again it will be tested and it will be marked as a good. So this is also improving their coding skills, coding like we can say that codes level, and then they are going to be deployed. So continuous delivery also automate that deployment process. So once this integration has been done, it's been passed this testing process. After that, it will be deployed. So it will be deployed to the mentioned environment like the development environment, then QA environment or a production environment. There are three environments are followed there in every company. Some of the companies are following two environments, like they are just testing it locally and then deploy it to the public. That will be on a productions. But some of the companies are following the approach. The big companies are following this approach. They are testing it well. Their QA team will test it well, and then it will be released to the public. So that continuous integrations and continuous delivery are done by the Jenkins itself. Then infrastructure as a code. Infrastructure as a code is a nothing. This is a kind of the script. You are just define the script On that script, you will just mention that inputs, the coding, that coding will be regarding for the Jenkins, and you can automate the infrastructure provisioning and management. So for this, the Jenkins is also helping because you can define the script as well as in a Jenkins. If you not want to follow the graphical interface, you can just do the coding and you can just mention the script there and that will be deployed. So that in you can define that process as per the scripting language. There are certain popular plugins which is available for a Jenkins and which is widely used. So first one is a Git plugin. As you know the picture right now, like when you are working in a IT company are following some practices like developers teams are sitting there, then QA teams are sitting there, testing teams are there, business analysis teams are there, and then CEO is there. So in this architecture of that companies are using that Git plugin for the developers. So in a Jenkins, there is a Git plugin which is helping to integrate this Jenkins with a Git repositories. What is Git repositories? As I've told you, in this Git repositories, developers are storing their code. Okay, that will be the Git. Before the Jenkins, there was SVN which was used widely, but SVN is now discontinued for the some of the companies. Mostly companies are now focusing and using the Git. Git is a very advanced tool. Okay, so that is helping for developers to save their codes as per their requirements, and they can using the Jenkins tools by this Git plugin. Once you install this Git plugin, you can just configure this Git repository location and that will be integrated. So if any changes came to your repository, it will be automatically fetched by Jenkins. So not have to worry. Once it will go and check that process again and again. If any changes came, it will pull that one and deploy it. Plugin pipelines. So plugin pipelines are helping to create a one kind of a streamlined process. It enables continuous delivery pipelines. So build process has been done, but if you want to deploy it to the particular servers, you can use the pipeline plugins, which is helping. It is enabling the feature to create that automation deployment pipelines, which is a process. So that process you can define, and that process will be followed in a chain. Once that build will be done, that will be deployed. So this process you can define through the pipeline plugin, which you have to install. So by default, when you install Jenkins, these plugins will be missing. You just have to choose that plugins and you have to install it. Docker plugin. If you want to integrate Jenkins with a Docker. So if we take an overview of a Docker is a kind of the virtualization tool, which is running the multiple virtual machines in a single machine. So you can deploy multiple application in a single machine. So Docker is a kind of the virtualization tool which will be helping, and using the Jenkins Docker plugin, you can integrate those Docker containers, the Docker machine with the Jenkins. So you can deploy that your changes on a Docker directly. Then there will be the Slack plugin. Slack is a one kind of that communication channel, communication software like the Skype, Microsoft Teams, and like that. So this will be used by the corporates. Okay, the corporate companies are using, the developers are using, so that they can communicate with each other and they can share their feedbacks and that they can do the conversations related to their developments. So whenever you install the Slack plugin, you can integrate those communication channel with this Jenkins. So if anything goes wrong with the Jenkins, any error occurs or any pipeline failed, any build process stuck, you will be get notified through that communications, so that you will be aware and you will be alerted through the Slack. So Slack plugin will be helping to integrate that Jenkins pipelines to the Slack channels. So you will be get notified every time when you having sent any deployments. If it is succeed or not, you will get notified. If there is will be issue, then you will be notified. So best practices you should have to follow. Okay. while working with the Jenkins. So this best practices are followed in the particular organizations. Okay. First is a security. Security is a most useful thing, because if your code is not properly secured, your pipelines are not secured, you cannot like rely on someone. Your loss will be there if someone get your code access. That will be the issue for a company. Their functionality can be lost, their credentials can be compromised, their we can say that they're having that issues in that we can say that user basis, because that will create a bad impact on that reputations as well. As so security is a kind of thing which is mostly followed by the IT companies to surveillance these things. If anything goes wrong, they cannot be having that loss. The business continuity should be done. So securities are there to secure their environments, regular updates, and then plugin management, access controls is required for the Jenkins, because Jenkins is having the process where you are getting the code. So if someone gets the access to the Jenkins who is not authorized, that will be creating an issue, because they can see that whole process, like from starting from the development to the deployment. Backup and recovery. So you can take a backup of a Jenkins configurations if you want. So suppose if you taken the backup of the Jenkins and stored it, if some issues came to the Jenkins and your Jenkins server is down, or Jenkins server has been crashed, or data has been lost, what you will do? If you having that backup, you can restore it. So you not have to start it from the scratch. You just restore that backup and you're good to go. You not have to do the hard work to maintain that and configure that Jenkins server again. So backup and recovery is the most important thing in a Jenkins. If sudden happen any changes during any updates or anything, or due to any infrastructure lost, so at that time you can use that backup and you can restore it to your any another Jenkins tool by fresh installation, and just use that backup to restore that configurations, and you are good to go. So that backup and restore process is a main things in a Jenkins, so you should have to follow that. Regular backups are required for that Jenkins configuration, so you can use it in kind of these situations. Regular backups and disaster recovery planning. So as I told you, regular backups are necessary because there are daily changes coming to the Jenkins. So if you not have taken the regular backups, you will lose that state. And if you having that older backup, you just have to do the work which you have done in the past. So that recent changes, you have to just configure that again. But if you're having the regular backups, you are taking it a weekly basis or a daily basis, that will help you throughout the process, and you not have to worry about that backup. You can just restore it if any disaster is coming, like your server is being crashed, there is some fluid, like your server is lost, server has been theft, anything will be there, server has been burned, anything can be done. So at that time you will just use these backups to restore your configurations, and that can be done. Monitoring. By monitoring process, you can that monitor each and every pipelines, like what is going on with your development flow, the what developers are doing, how many times pipelines are running, is pipeline running properly, deployment is going properly, you will also get notified. So that monitoring things is there in a Jenkins, so you can just monitoring the states. You have done the configurations, now you just have to monitoring. As a DevOps engineer, once you do the configurations there, you not have to worry about anything. You just have to do your checking on monitoring dashboard. You will just see that pipelines, like it is following properly or not. If something's happened with that there, you will get an alert, and you will just have to work on that and fix it out. Using monitoring plugins. So using the monitoring plugins, you will get notified, you will be alerted on the failures. As I told you, Slack channels are there, Microsoft Teams is there, emails are there. So you will be get notified through these mediums, and you can be alerted. If something goes wrong, you can just go and fix it. So let's see the future of a Jenkins. Accelerate software development and deployment process. So as we seen earlier as well, as it will accelerate software development, because developer is not have to worry about the things to be done. They just have to do their work and push their changes. That's it. Rest of the things are taken care by the Jenkins. So this is solving the problems of the developers as well as that operations teams, and then the testing team. So testing, the more testing is not required, automated testing will be done by the Jenkins. Rest of that feature testing will be done by the QA team. This is solving the problems of the three peoples like developers, DevOps, and then the QA team. So this will accelerate their software development things. As I've given the example of the Instagram, they are daily releasing the things. Daily they are releasing a new version of the applications. Why? Because they are having that this kind of the approach they are following. So this kind of the approach is followed by the most of the companies nowadays. They are using the Jenkins. If you search it out in a Google like the Jenkins, any profile like, and if you see that Jenkins will be always mentioned, because Jenkins is a kind of DevOps tool which is used by each and every companies. It will reduce the integrations issues. So it is reducing the integration issue. So if you're doing manually, you just have to worry about it. If you are a human, like human can do the errors, but machine not. So once you define the process there, it will be done in a regular basis. If it is working fine, that means it is running fine. So human can do the mistakes, machine cannot. So this machine process you are defining, and you just have to not worry about that after setting up this Jenkins. The integration will be done automatically as per the defined process. It will increases the productivity. So as I told you, it will increase the productivity. Why? Because the developers, DevOps, and the QA team can focus on their another works. So that productivity will be increased. So they not have to consume the time, the crucial time on these things. They can just focus on other things and let their things can be done, and that will be the very productivity. So that increase their productivity. Ensures consistent environments for testings and deployments. So as I've told you, this is the machine, because they will not do any issue once you define the process purely, that if there is no issue coming up, that means that is working fine. The issues will be arrived in a certain stages, like if there is a development side issue or any code side issues there, so you will get an error. But once you define this process, you will not have to worry. So that is ensuring consistent. Consistent means continuity it is working fine. So that will be the consistency environment for a testing and a deployment. So testing and deployment is are doing, and we can say that automatically. So that is a consistent. You do not have to worry about that things, and that can be done easily. Highly customizable and extensible. So what is that? So when you are doing any Jenkins work, that is customizable. Like you can define the process as per your requirements. If you want to test it 2 times, you can define the 2 time process there. If you want to deploy in a multiple servers, you can deploy it using the multiple servers. You can define and as per your requirements. Okay. If you are having that multiple requirements, like your client is telling you like, I want to deploy first in a test environment and need to deploy in a queue environment. So that you can define it. So this is highly customizable. So you can customize as you want. If you want to use this another tool, you can use it anyone. You can use any another plugins there. So that plugins you can mention there, and that will be ready to use. You just have to configure it and you just good to go. So this is highly customizable and extensible. So you can extend that workloads there. If you want to share that workloads with the another machines, if you want to deploy the in a multiple machines, you can just extend your performance using this Jenkins tool. So this is the future of Jenkins. This is already in a use in a current situations. Companies are using Jenkins. It is widely using, and also there is a future of Jenkins, that in a future also that all the companies are doing this. Every small companies, like if they having that 2 or 5 employees, they are also trying to do this implementations, because this is helping their productivity to be increased. So as we seen the Jenkins process, as we started with the pipelines, like when we working with the pipelines, there are some process which we are defining so that development team can push their changes, they can deploy it in a real world. If we're talking about that Jenkins is implemented, we have taken the example of Instagram. There is one more examples, like we can see about that what is the changes which is coming up in a within a, we can say that every days. So there is a WhatsApp. If you see, WhatsApp is continuously adding features on a day-to-day basis. You will see that you are getting the updates of the WhatsApp app. Why? Because the development team is using this kind of the CI/CD tools, which is helping them to process faster the changes. They can test it well, and in a less time they can release their changes. So that productivity will be increasing. The lots of developers not have the headache to deploy that things manually, which is helping for the streamline process. So this is helping the process can be defined as a cleanly matters. So as we seen, the purpose of this Jenkins is to solving our IT CI/CD process, and the pipelines we can create, we can not have to worry about, that will be done automatically. So the process, the purpose of Jenkins use case is to simplify this process. You not have to worry about and have the headache about these deployments and continuously development testing. So this can be done by the automation tool. As we seen the purpose of this. So that purpose we have seen, why, what is this requirement to increase the productivity, that there is a community which is there helping for a betterment of this Jenkins tool. They are providing their changes in a regular basis so that productivity, the Jenkins efficiency can be increased. So that's why Jenkins is an essential tool for DevOps practices, and it is enabling efficient and automated software development and deployment process. It is extensively and robust community support make it preferred choice for CI/CD pipelines. So there are lots of tools available for this CI/CD process, but Jenkins is the best one. Why? Because this is an open source. Some companies are taking the charge, and some companies are providing these CI/CD tools. As I have given the example of a bamboo, but there is no stability there. But Jenkins is a stable one. In another tools, you are getting the issues regarding the plugins or the configurations or related to the stability, maintenance, all kind of things. But with the Jenkins, your process are getting faster and faster because the regularly updates are coming up. If there is any bugs, that will be fixed by the community itself. You will check it out, the community support there, which will be helping you. So let's take an example by searching it. If you search about the Jenkins, this will be the image of this Jenkins logo. Here it is mentioned the staff. Their logo is designed like the staff. Why? So it is a kind of the servant. Jenkins is acting like a servant. They are taking the code changes from the Git or a GitHub, any repository you have defined there, that is pulling that things, and then it is doing the build, which means uh, they are just building the things and then serving to you, serving to the servers, so deploying to the servers. So this process is followed. That's why Jenkins logo is like created as this intention, like showing like the chef. This is a chef who is, and there are a waiter. So waiter is there who is just serving these things. Chef is made in. So this backend process will be done by the some tools, but the front end will be the Jenkins. So Jenkins is kind of that providing the delivery approach where you are building, testing, and deploying, and facilitating continuous integrations, continuous delivery, and it is a server-based systems that's run in a serverless containers such as Apache Tomcat. So you can deploy to any of the servers like Apache, Nginx, anyone, or any servers which is a Linux, Windows, any. So you can deploy your websites through this Jenkins with the automated automation manners. So this is the Jenkins. If you want to see the image of the console itself, let's see. So if you see here, this is the Jenkins page. Okay. Here you can find out the dashboards and all kind of things. And this is the pipeline. As we learning about like things, what is the pipeline? This is the pipeline. This is the workflow where it is mentioned declarative checkout SCM. So source code management. SCM is source code management, which will be the repository. So it will pull the changes, then build that one, test it out, testing it again if you define the process. If there is any error, it will check and it will deliver, which means deployment. So you can customize your steps as per your requirements. Suppose if you don't want this second test, you can just remove it. If you want to remove this error one, like if any error checking there is there, you can remove that one. If you want to mention that deliver name as deployment, you can mention the name as well as. So this is the interface where Jenkins is showing to you. So you can see the initial release. It is the 2 February 2011. So since 2011, this Jenkins has been introduced to the market where it is resolving the issues. Okay. And here if you see, it is resolving the issues. Okay. So here you can see it is supporting the version control tools. Like earlier before the Git, there was a certain tools like CVS, Subversions, Git, and then Git is the current version which is used by the many companies, Clearbase, RTCs, and all kind of things. So if you see the history of that, Jenkins project was originally named Hudson. It was earlier named as a Hudson's and was renamed in 2011. Okay, after the dispute with Oracle. So Oracle also working on these things for the CI/CD process, but and if that and that Hudson was named there. Okay, the Hudson was discontinued. So before that Jenkins, this name was Hudson. So this is the very older tool if we see. So earlier the tool name was Hudson and then it's been renamed to the Jenkins in 2011. So this is the 2005. So from 2005 this was introduced and that this was working. But as conflict with the Oracle group, the naming, because that namings and features, they have renamed this as a Jenkins and then they get the license. So Jenkins is a Java based software. If you have any question like why and how this Jenkins is made. So Jenkins has been written in a Java language. So that backend, the language is Java. You can see here written in Java, platform, Java 11, Java 17, and Java 21, which is the latest one. So if you want to use the Jenkins, you just have to first install the Java in your system and then you can install this tool. Then only this will support. So Java is the required things for this Jenkins installations. So as we see in the history also with the Jenkins, you can see what is the build process, which we have already seen in the slides. This I am demonstrating you here, like the showing is showing you here, like what is the builds. So builds can be triggered by the various means for a webhook that we have setting up with the version control systems using the cron mechanism. So you can define the time, like particular timeline if you want to set, you can just schedule that time like at 1 p.m. this should be triggered or at a 5 p.m. this should be triggered. So you can just define that mechanism there. There are lots of plugins are available, which is helping to increase that productivity of your users experience and that do the testing also. So you can see there are many plugins available for the testings and then bundling or notifications, alerting, storing the credentials, connecting with the SSH connections. So that all is available. So this is the history of the Jenkins software. Why this should be used, we have already seen. How it is looks, the console, we have seen like how this console looks. Now, we have seen that summary. Okay, why this is used? This is used for and preferable choice for the CI/CD pipelines as compared to the other ones. And it is versatile and can be used by the various teams. So if your company having that team members, like there are different team members, like this is the Python team, this is the Java team, this is the .NET team, this is the Angular team. So you can define the process, define the team wise group. You can configure the process for them. You can install that the dependencies and you can work. So if there is a one technology person, there is a Java, and there is a one other technology person which is a Python. So you can do the build process for both of them in a single Jenkins server. You just have to deploy that plugins. You just have to install the plugin in your Jenkins and you are good to go. So Java dependencies, then Python dependencies, .NET dependencies, you can just install in your system and you are good to go. You can configure the plugin and then you can set up the build process. Best practice and regular maintenance are key to successful use. So best practice you should have to follow for using this Jenkins tool, which is helping you to regularly like improve the performance. If you having the performance related issues, you should have to follow the best practices to be done and you can get the output. So by following this process, you are getting things done in a better way. So this program, the Jenkins learning program, the DevOps tool, this is Jenkins DevOps tool. This learning program will be of a 12 days. Okay. So 12 days program will be there. So in this program, you will get the things can be done, how you can install starting from the scratch. So if we see, so day one will be completely understandings of what is the continuous integrations, how you can do the setup in your current environment, why this is used, what are the features of this. We will go through that by the running the Jenkins. Then why this should be approached, why we should have to use this Jenkins tool. So we'll see the real-time demonstrations of this Jenkins tool. Once you opt in for the batch, you can discuss with the eVision team. So you can just discuss with the team and you can get enroll for Jenkins course. So by this following course, why this is necessary? Because Jenkins is a powerful tool for a DevOps process. Without Jenkins, DevOps process is not complete. And this is used by every companies. In the current environment, current scenario, the IT companies are required this Jenkins. Okay, any IT company who are following the development process, they are using the Jenkins for faster their deployments, for their developments, testing purposes and all. So who can enroll? In this process, if you are working as a Linux administrator, Windows administrator, or a, we can say the DevOps engineer, cloud engineer, you can enroll for this course because this is a entry point for a DevOps. Okay, if you want to become a DevOps engineer, as well as if you're working as an IT person or a technical person who are not aware about the DevOps practices, this is the starting tool which you have to learn. Once you learn these things, you can say like 25% of the DevOps process you are learning, because this is the very much useful process. You are going to spend your time on this Jenkins tool in your company, because this tool will be having the beneficials for the development teams, that operations team, and then the testing team. So you are mainly working with this tool. You are defining the processes, you are just automating the things, and you just going to monitor it. So this is the as per the career approach. If you want to looking for a DevOps engineer, and if you want to become a DevOps engineer or a cloud engineers or a system administrators, because system administrators are also using the Jenkins now in their local environment as well as in a cloud. So as you working as a DevOps engineer, if you are looking to become a DevOps engineer, if you already working with the Linux administrator, Windows administrators, you have to follow this process, because this tool will be very useful for everyone, and this is the game changer tool. That's why in a IT companies, they are preferred to use that person who are having the knowledge of these tools. So this, by using this tool, you can configure the so many things, you can just automate the process, and you can share and provide the access to your particular teams. So in this course, we are going to see how we can install the Jenkins, then how we can do the initial configurations for our company, like the what is the company is running the project, like the Java project, .NET project, Angular project. We will also see that things. So how we can do the configurations, how we can do the configurations of the tools, what will be the best practices for follow that, different types of the Jenkins process which we can follow, how we can configure the source code management, like how we can integrate that repositories with our Jenkins server, then how we can working with the Git. So we can just see how we can just configure that Git in our process, so that we are going to take the examples and we will do the demo of, as well as how we can store our credentials securely. If we want to securely store, like if someone get the access of the Jenkins, how we can secure our environment. Then how to start the build. That is the very useful process which we are going to learn in this course. So how you can build the triggers, how can schedule your triggers. If you want to set up the schedule at particular time, you can, how you can schedule it, how you can just mention the steps, how you can continuously deploy it to the servers. Then we will see the Jenkins security sections, where how we can secure our environment, how we can enable the authentications, authorizations, how we can confidentially store our credentials there, how we can activate our additional security of the Jenkins, and how we can do the authentications configurations. And we'll use the creation of the user, as well as how we can create the users, how we can enable the authorization for them, how they can how we can set up the passwords for them, how we can set up the username for them, and which access they will get, that we can also define. That is also the process, like the particular teams should be only having the particular pipeline access. We cannot give them all pipeline access, because that will be create a issue as well as. So if I give the Java person the access of the Python pipeline, that will the wrong thing. I cannot give that. So we can also understanding this kind of the process, where we can define that user and we can authorize them to access that particular pipelines. So that on that we will see that matrix based security, how we can define that matrix based security, how we can create a administrator user if I want to create admin user, if I'm having the multiple system admins or multiple DevOps engineers, how I can create a separate account for them, so that they can also trigger and configure the Jenkins whenever required. Then we will also see that build pipeline view that we have seen it in a screenshot. So that screenshot we have seen, that image we have seen of the Jenkins console, that Jenkins is look like that. You can access it from the browser itself. So we will also see that after the installations, we will also create a pipelines there, and we will see how we can monitor that. Then how we can continuously do the deployment, okay, with the DevOps process. So that this whole process which is mentioned here, that we are going to see and do the example. We will follow that example. We will do that testing as well as, and we can do the deployment through this Jenkins process. So that will be covered in this Jenkins tool. Then how you can use the pipeline plugins. Then how you can do the creation of the pipeline, how you can invoke the pipeline. So when will it should be triggered, so you can set up. And then we will do the best practices should be followed to secure your Jenkins environment, how you can do reproducibility of the builds, how you can generate the testing reports, how this will be worked in a larger environment where there are lots of developers are available, like hundreds, 200s, 300s, 400s. On that, how this Jenkins server can be configured, and how we can distribute these Jenkins. As we seen about the master things, like we can configure the Jenkins master, we can configure the Jenkins node. So we can define one Jenkins server as a master, and they can operate the many Jenkins servers. Okay. Under of that master server, we can also operate that multiple Jenkins slaves. So that will be the master slave concept, which we are also going to see. Suppose if I am working here and my company's branches are there, like I want to deploy the application in a India region, and one application I'm running in a USA. So I want to deploy application in a USA region. How I can do? I can configure the master node here in India. I can configure the slave node in USA. And if any changes I want to deploy, I will just mention that parameters. And if I just execute that pipeline, that will be deployed on a USA. So we can set up the interconnectivity between the two servers using this master and slave concept. So that all things will be covered about the Jenkins tool in this particular course. So this Jenkins plugin tools is very crucial to be learned, and this is the first stage of a DevOps. Okay, when you are working and if you're looking for a DevOps profile, if you're looking for a DevOps profile, or if you're looking for a work as a cloud engineer, also they are looking for someone who was having that Jenkins knowledge, because Jenkins is a tool which is used worldwide. And because this is the very older tool with the most stable version, most stability as compared to the other tools, this is widely used. That's why this should be learned. So as we seen, we have to follow this scenario where you can obtain for this course. This course will be of the 12 days. Okay. So you can just register for this course by contacting the eVision team, and you will be join this course. So this is the conclusion of the Jenkins part. Thank you all of you for this webinar. If you want to enroll, you can just contact to the eVision team and you will be enrolled for this course. So you are getting learning these things which will be required for your future. And this is helping you throughout your career journey.